The morning sky above Earth was clear, with only a few clouds drifting lazily across the vast expanse. But the calm was short-lived. On every screen, in every military command center, across every major city on Earth, an alarm blared loudly. Red lights flashed, signaling an emergency, a threat that no one could have predicted. Earth's defenses had detected something huge, moving toward their home planet. It was unlike anything humanity had ever seen before. In space, far beyond the orbits of Earth's moon, an alien fleet had appeared. They were unlike any ship humanity had ever built, with massive dark vessels that seemed to ripple with energy. These ships were not the kind of technology humans could even dream of. They were sleek, enormous, and far more advanced than anything Earth's scientists could fathom. The fleet had entered human space at incredible speed, and there was no sign of slowing down. Back on Earth, General Sarah Andrews stood in the command center of Earth's Defense Force, EDF. Her eyes were fixed on the screens, her heart pounding as the alien ships loomed closer. She had seen plenty of combat in her time, but nothing like this. The ships on the radar weren't just any ships. These were colossal, their size dwarfing anything Earth had ever built. She looked to the side at the radar display, where blips were rapidly multiplying. Alien ships, an entire armada. What are they doing? She muttered to herself. Her fingers hovered over the communication console, unsure whether to send a message or simply wait. She knew that this situation could be one of the most critical moments in Earth's history. She couldn't afford to make a mistake. Suddenly, a voice broke through the silence, crackling on the comms. The voice was smooth but cold, with a strange, almost mechanical quality. Humans of Earth, this is your final warning. Cease all activities within this space. You are not welcome here. The words sent a chill down Sarah's spine. She had been prepared for an attack, but this was different. A warning? No weapons had been fired, but the message was clear. This was not a friendly encounter. Her fingers flew over the keyboard as she attempted to establish contact with the alien fleet. Who are you? Why have you come here? She typed, her voice trembling slightly, though she tried to keep it steady. The message sent into the void, waiting for a response, but nothing came. The silence was deafening. General Andrews could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her chest. She had fought in battles before, seen her soldiers in the thick of combat, but she had never faced something like this. Her mind raced as she considered their options. Was this a misunderstanding? A probe to test Earth's defenses? Or was it something far worse? The alien fleet was approaching quickly, and Earth's military had no way of knowing what they were capable of. With each passing second, the ships drew closer, their massive size making the Earth's defenses look like toys. Sarah's eyes flicked to the screen showing their distance from Earth, less than a few hours away now. We need to be ready, she said, turning toward her team. Get every fighter in the air. Have all weapons systems on standby. I don't know what we're dealing with yet, but we need to be prepared for anything. The officers around her scrambled to action, their faces tense, just as unsure as she was about the true intentions of the approaching fleet. Earth had never faced an enemy like this before. Humanity had fought wars between nations, even on the edge of space, but never like this. These weren't just rival humans or rogue factions. This was something from beyond their understanding. Hours passed, and the world held its breath. Media outlets across the globe began to broadcast the situation, and panic slowly spread. People wondered whether this was the beginning of an invasion. Would they be attacked, wiped out, or was it some kind of advanced alien diplomatic mission? No one could know for sure. Governments around the world scrambled to form a unified response. Earth was in danger, and the alien fleet was only growing closer. Then, just when it seemed like the entire world might collapse under the weight of uncertainty, another transmission came through. This time, it was direct, clear, and unmistakable. The voice was deep, with an authority that resonated in every word. It came from one of the alien ships, clearly directed at the leaders of Earth. "Humans of Earth," the voice said, its tone cold but somehow filled with a sense of finality. "This is your last warning. Do not approach our ships, do not interfere with our passage. If you do, we will consider it an act of aggression. We will retaliate with overwhelming force." The room fell into stunned silence. General Andrews could feel the pressure mounting, her heart racing faster. These aliens weren't here for diplomacy. They weren't here for peaceful contact. This was a warning, a threat, and in that moment, she knew that Earth had no choice but to make a decision. Either back down and hope for the best, or prepare for war. "General, what should we do?" one of her officers asked, his voice shaking. They all looked to her for guidance, their eyes full of fear. It wasn't just fear of the unknown anymore. It was fear of what they could do. Sarah swallowed hard, looking at the screen again. The alien ships were now close enough that their size was apparent to all. They didn't need to fire a single shot to instill fear. Their mere presence was enough to send the world into a panic. But Sarah had a duty to protect Earth, no matter the odds. "We don't have a choice," she said quietly. "Prepare for battle. If they want war, they'll get it. We'll fight to the end, no matter what." She gave the orders, her voice unwavering. But deep inside, her mind raced with questions. Were they really ready? Could Earth fight something so powerful? The unknown hung in the air like a thick fog. But one thing was certain. Humanity's future was now in the hands of the few brave souls who would fight for their survival. The fleet of alien ships continued to approach, drawing closer to Earth's orbit. General Sarah Andrews stood tall, staring at the screens, knowing that whatever happened next, Earth would never be the same again. The universe was a far bigger place than they had ever known, and the true dangers of that vast expanse were now at their doorstep. The clock was ticking, and the alien fleet was almost here. The alarms were deafening, echoing through the command center like a chorus of doom. The soldiers at their posts scrambled, their faces pale, as the monitors flashed with images of the alien fleet. Earth had known the stars were vast, but never had they imagined it would lead to this. The fleet of ships had come from beyond the furthest reaches of known space, and their presence was undeniable. There was no mistake. These ships were here for a reason, and that reason was not peace. General Sarah Andrews stood in front of the central command table, watching the holographic projections of the approaching fleet. The shapes of the ships on the screen were monstrous, vast structures that dwarfed even the largest warships in Earth's fleet. There was no mistaking it. These weren't just visitors from another world. They were an invading force. The fleet moved with terrifying precision, like a pack of predators closing in on their prey. "What are they?" an officer asked, his voice shaky. "Where did they come from? We've never seen ships like that before." Sarah's jaw tightened. "I don't know. We've been watching the skies for years, and this wasn't on any radar. This isn't some rogue faction. These ships are too organized, too advanced. These are something else." Her mind raced with thoughts of all the possible scenarios. Had they come to conquer? To trade? To observe? No one could say for sure, but the fear in the air was palpable. Humanity had never encountered anything like this. Ships that appeared out of nowhere, their designs unlike anything humans had ever seen, and their size made Earth's own fleet seem tiny. These were no mere visitors. They were a threat, and it was becoming clearer by the second. "General, we've intercepted another transmission," a communications officer called out. His voice was urgent, yet controlled. "It's from one of the ships." Sarah's gaze snapped to the officer. Her pulse quickened. "Patch it through." The room fell silent as the voice crackled over the speakers. It was calm, smooth, but there was something deeply unsettling about it, an almost mechanical quality, as if the words were being delivered with cold precision. "Humans of Earth," the voice began, sending a chill through the room. "This is your final warning. Cease all activities within this space. You are not welcome here." A shiver ran down Sarah's spine. This wasn't a greeting or a diplomatic request. It was a threat. "Who are you?" she whispered under her breath, as if the words might make more sense if she could just speak them aloud. The transmission continued, but the voice offered no answer to her question. Instead, it delivered another chilling message. "Your space is a no-go zone. We have traveled far to reach you, and we will not tolerate any interference. If you do not comply, your actions will be considered an act of aggression." The room was dead silent. Sarah stared at the screen, her mind racing to comprehend what she had just heard. An act of aggression. From who? From Earth. They had no idea who these beings were, no idea what their capabilities were. How could they respond to a threat when they didn't even know what kind of enemy they were facing? "General, what do we do?" one of her officers asked, his voice full of fear and uncertainty. "Do we engage? What if they're here to destroy us?" Sarah shook her head slowly, her mind working furiously. She couldn't afford to panic, not now. Not with Earth's fate hanging in the balance. There had to be a way to approach this. They couldn't just launch into an all-out war without knowing what they were dealing with. But could they risk waiting? "I don't know," she answered honestly. "But we're not going to sit here and do nothing." She turned to the communications officer. "Send a response. Ask them who they are, why they're here. We need answers." The officer nodded and quickly typed the message. As he hit send, Sarah felt a weight settle on her shoulders. The future of humanity was at the mercy of these unknown beings, and all they could do was wait. Minutes dragged on like hours. Sarah felt the tension in the room mounting as the minutes passed without any reply. It was as if the alien fleet had simply paused in space, watching Earth. The silence was suffocating. Suddenly, the console flickered to life again. The message that appeared on the screen wasn't a reply, but something far worse. Another transmission from the alien fleet, this time more direct, more urgent. "Humans of Earth," the voice boomed, loud enough to rattle the command center. "You have been warned. We are not your enemies, but you will be if you continue to challenge our presence. This is the last time we will speak to you. You have until we enter orbit to comply." The message cut off abruptly, leaving the room in stunned silence. Sarah stood frozen, staring at the screen, her mind racing. They had just been given a deadline. A deadline to do what? To surrender, to retreat. "We can't just back down," Sarah said, her voice a quiet, determined whisper. "We have to know who they are. We have to at least try to communicate." But the officer next to her, Lieutenant James, looked grim. "What if they're here for something else? What if this isn't just a warning? What if they plan to destroy us?" "I don't know," Sarah replied, the uncertainty weighing heavily on her chest. "But we can't give up without understanding what we're up against." She turned to face the window overlooking the vastness of space. The fleet was still coming, growing ever closer. Each passing second felt like an eternity. And with every moment, the alien fleet seemed more and more like an unstoppable force, something far beyond the strength of Earth's defenses. The fate of humanity now rested on a knife's edge. There was no going back. Whatever choice they made, whatever path they took, it would define their future. The alien ships continued their approach, their presence looming over the Earth like a shadow, casting doubt and fear across the planet. The countdown had begun. Time was running out, and Sarah knew that whatever decision she made next could be humanity's last. The unknown was vast, and the consequences of their next move were unimaginable. The tension was unbearable, and all Sarah could do was brace herself for what came next. The fleet loomed closer, a terrifying spectacle of firepower and purpose. Earth's fleet, though large and powerful, was no match for the alien armada. Sarah stood in the command center, her mind whirling. The soldiers, officers, and technicians around her were all silent, staring at their screens, waiting for the next move. It was as if the entire world had frozen in place, waiting for the inevitable. "How long until they reach orbit?" Sarah asked, her voice steady but with an underlying tension. 3 hours, General, the communications officer replied. At this speed, we don't have much time. 3 hours. It seemed like a lifetime, and yet it was nothing. Humanity's fate would be decided in the blink of an eye. Every second that ticked by felt heavier than the last, and the weight of it all pressed on Sarah's chest like a vice. I'm not just going to sit here and wait for them to make the first move, Sarah muttered under her breath. She turned to face her officers. Prepare the fleet for potential combat. We'll be ready if it comes to that. The officers scrambled to carry out her orders, their movements quick and efficient, but the tension was palpable. Everyone could sense the gravity of the situation. If war came, it wouldn't just be Earth's fate on the line. It would be the fate of the entire human race. The transmissions from the alien fleet had been chilling, but they had been vague. It was clear they weren't here for friendly talks. The threat was unmistakable. The message had been simple. You have until we enter orbit to comply. Comply with what? No one knew. They hadn't given any specifics. And now, there was no time to ask questions. They were about to find out what happened when a species pushed back. General, Lieutenant James spoke up, his voice strained. We need to consider all options. What if they're too powerful? What if? Sarah cut him off with a sharp look. I'm aware of the risks, Lieutenant, but we can't afford to cower. We have to stand our ground. James hesitated, then nodded grimly. Understood. The room was filled with the quiet hum of equipment, but the silence was suffocating. The thought of facing an enemy with unknown capabilities sent chills through Sarah's spine. What could they possibly want with Earth? The alien fleet had been so deliberate in their approach, so confident. Whatever their objective, they weren't going to back down. And neither could Earth. Hours passed, each one stretching longer than the last. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was coming. As much as she tried to focus on the task at hand, her mind kept wandering to the looming threat above them. The fleet was so massive, its ships seemingly endless, and they weren't slowing down. The unknown nature of the enemy, the uncertainty of their motives, it all felt like a storm cloud hanging over the command center, ready to burst. General, we've received another transmission. The communications officer called out, his voice tense. Put it through, Sarah ordered, already bracing herself for whatever chilling message the aliens had for them next. The transmission came through loud and clear, the voice of the alien captain cutting through the silence like a knife. Humans of Earth, the voice began, calm but filled with an eerie finality. Your time is running out. We have given you fair warning. You will comply or face the consequences. Do not waste your time resisting. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she listened to the captain's cold, calculated words. The message was clear. They had no intention of negotiating. This wasn't a warning anymore. This was a declaration. And if Earth didn't give in, they would face the wrath of an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. She took a deep breath and turned to her officers. Prepare the fleet. We're going to make contact. General, are you sure about this? Lieutenant James asked, his face pale. We don't know what they're capable of. I'm aware, Lieutenant, but we can't just sit here and wait for them to destroy us. We have to at least try. James didn't look convinced, but he nodded. The crew moved quickly, preparing for the unknown. It wasn't just about defending Earth anymore. It was about sending a message. Humanity wouldn't be intimidated, not by anyone, not by anything. As the fleet moved into position, Sarah watched from the command center, her heart racing. She knew this was it, the moment of truth. The enemy was just hours away from entering orbit, and Earth's response was the only thing standing between humanity and oblivion. The alien fleet had already shown their hand. Their ships were massive and heavily armed, and their message had been unequivocal. They weren't here for a friendly chat, but what did that mean for humanity? Was this the end of everything they had fought for, or was it just the beginning of a new chapter? Sarah's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a loud beep. The radar had picked up something. The fleet's ships were closing in faster than anticipated. The countdown had begun. The alien ships were within range now. Earth's fleet was positioned, but the odds were not in their favor. The alien fleet was too powerful. "We're ready, General," Lieutenant James said, his voice tense but resolute. Sarah nodded, her fingers gripping the edge of the table. She had no more answers than anyone else in the room. All she had was her resolve. Earth would stand. And whatever came next, humanity would face it with everything they had. They would not go down without a fight. "Open a channel to their lid ship," Sarah ordered, her voice firm. "We're going to make them understand that Earth is not a target to be destroyed." The seconds felt like hours as the communication lines were opened. The officers around Sarah looked to her for guidance, and she gave them what she could: determination. If the aliens were here for war, then war they would have. The fleet's guns powered up, and Sarah took one last look at the screen. The alien ships were almost upon them. "General," the communications officer called. "They're responding." The screen flickered, and once again the alien captain's voice filled the room. "Humans," the voice said, cold and unfeeling. "We warned you. You have made your choice." Sarah took a deep breath. "And you have made yours," she replied, her voice steady. The communication channel went silent for a brief moment, the tension in the room so thick it was almost suffocating. The only sound that could be heard was the hum of machinery and the occasional soft click of someone adjusting their station. Sarah's mind raced as she stared at the screen, waiting for the inevitable response. She could almost feel the weight of the alien captain's gaze on them, even through the distance. Then the voice returned, colder than before. "Very well, human. You will regret this. Prepare for annihilation." The message cut off abruptly, leaving the room in a deep, unsettling silence. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she processed the words. Regret. The aliens were threatening them with destruction, and yet there was a chill in the captain's tone that suggested something even more dangerous, something beyond just military might. "General," Lieutenant James spoke up, his voice trembling with unease. We need to reconsider. They've made it clear they're not bluffing. We're not equipped for this level of warfare. We might not survive this." Sarah's eyes flicked to the screen again, where the alien fleet was now in full view. Massive ships, their dark, jagged forms blotting out the stars. Their weapons were visible, ready and waiting, an overwhelming display of force. If she had any doubts about the aliens' intentions, they were gone now. This was war, and they were on the brink of it. She turned back to James, her gaze steady despite the fear she felt. "I understand your concerns, Lieutenant, but we can't back down now. We've made our stand. It's too late to turn back." He nodded, though his expression betrayed his anxiety. The officers around them were working quickly, preparing the fleet for whatever came next, but it was clear that they, too, were feeling the weight of the situation. They had never faced anything like this before. The seconds stretched into minutes as they waited, each one bringing them closer to a battle they were not prepared for. The alien ships moved closer, the lead ship now within striking range. Sarah's heart raced as she observed the alien armada from the command center. The scale of it was unfathomable. Hundreds of ships, each one more advanced and deadly than anything Earth had ever seen. "General, the fleet is in position," an officer reported, breaking Sarah from her thoughts. "We're ready to engage." Sarah took a deep breath. It was now or never. They had to fight, or they would be wiped out. She nodded, her voice clear and commanding. "Open fire." The command went out, and in an instant, Earth's fleet unleashed a barrage of firepower, their weapons lighting up the darkness of space. Missiles and energy blasts flew toward the alien fleet, creating an impressive display of light and destruction. But despite their best efforts, the alien ships didn't flinch. Their shields absorbed the blasts with ease, and the alien armada pressed forward, unyielding and relentless. Sarah clenched her fists. The weapons of Earth's fleet were powerful, but they were nothing compared to the overwhelming force of the aliens. It was like throwing rocks at a mountain. The realization hit her like a cold wave. They were outmatched. If this continued, they wouldn't last long. "General," one of the officers cried out. "They're retaliating. We've got incoming." Before Sarah could react, a new threat emerged. Laser beams, powerful enough to rip through the hull of a ship, shot out from the alien fleet. The blasts collided with Earth's ships, tearing them apart with frightening speed. The sheer power behind the attack was unlike anything they had ever encountered. One of Earth's destroyers exploded in a flash of light, its debris scattering into the void. Panic spread throughout the command center as the destruction continued. The screens flashed with emergency alerts, and Sarah's heart raced as she saw more ships falling, one after another. There was no time to think. She had to make decisions now, decisions that could either save or doom them all. "Shut down all non-essential systems," Sarah ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Initiate evasive maneuvers. We're not going down without a fight." Her officers scrambled to carry out the orders, but the reality was sinking in. They were fighting against an enemy that was not just stronger, they were more advanced. The alien ships were too fast, their weapons too powerful, and Earth's fleet was no match for the onslaught. "We can't stop them, General," Lieutenant James shouted, his voice rising in desperation. "They're tearing us apart. We need a new strategy. Now." Sarah's mind raced as she tried to think of something, anything that could turn the tide. She couldn't afford to give up. Earth couldn't afford to give up. But the longer they fought, the more hopeless it seemed. Suddenly, a thought sparked in her mind. It wasn't much, but it was something. She turned to one of her officers, her voice urgent. "Can we get a communication link to their lead ship?" The officer looked at her in disbelief. "General, we're being torn to pieces out here. We don't have time for talks." "We do it now," Sarah snapped, her voice hard with determination. "Now." The officer nodded quickly and began working on the communication systems. Within moments, the screen flickered, and the cold, commanding voice of the alien captain filled the room again. "General of Earth," the alien captain's voice was laced with amusement. "Do you still think you can win this? Your fleet is being destroyed. You are nothing but a small, insignificant species. Why do you persist?" Sarah took a deep breath, her voice calm despite the chaos around her. "Because we won't surrender. And we won't stop fighting. You may have the power to destroy us, but you'll never have the will to break us." For a brief moment, there was silence on the other end. Sarah could almost feel the alien captain's frustration seeping through the transmission. Then the voice returned, colder than before. "Then you will die, and Earth will fall." The screen went black. The transmission was cut off. Sarah stood there, her heart pounding in her chest. The alien fleet was far from finished, and their next move would likely be the final blow. But she wasn't done yet. She refused to give in. "Prepare the remaining ships for one final stand," Sarah ordered. "We're not finished yet." The next few moments were a blur of frantic activity and tension, each decision weighing heavily on Sarah's shoulders. The command center buzzed with urgency as her officers scrambled to make sense of the situation. Earth's fleet, though small and outmatched, still had one advantage: humanity's sheer will to survive. The aliens had underestimated that, and Sarah wasn't about to let them forget it. "General, our remaining ships are gathering their last reserves," Lieutenant James reported, his voice laced with exhaustion. "We've got maybe one more shot at this, but if we don't act soon, it's over." Sarah turned her gaze toward the shattered remains of Earth's fleet, scattered in the cold void. Some ships were already drifting, silent and broken. Others were still fighting, though it was clear that their energy reserves were nearly spent. The alien fleet, on the other hand, remained relentless, a dark and imposing wall of destruction. Her mind raced as she scanned the battlefield. Earth's ships were outclassed, their weapons ineffective against the alien shields, But they had something the aliens didn't: unpredictability. They could still make it work, even if it was a long shot. "Get me a direct link to all remaining ships," Sarah ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. Now. Her officers moved quickly, and soon, a communication feed opened on the main screen. The faces of the remaining captains and commanders appeared, each of them battle-worn but resolute. They knew what was at stake. The odds were slim, but they weren't giving up. "This is it," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside her. "We don't have enough firepower to take them head-on, but we can use our speed, our agility. We can outmaneuver them. We'll hit them with everything we have, and we'll do it fast. Hit their weak points, force them to waste their energy on targets that don't matter. If we can't destroy them, we can at least make them regret ever coming here." The officers nodded, understanding the plan. It wasn't a perfect strategy, but it was all they had. As the fleet began to position themselves, Sarah watched as the alien ships moved closer, their guns charging with deadly intent. A low hum filled the command center as Sarah leaned forward, her heart pounding. "On my mark. All ships, engage." The command rang out, and Earth's remaining ships sprang into action, darting forward at full speed. They weaved and zigzagged through the alien fleet, doing everything they could to stay mobile, to keep the aliens guessing. They were no longer fighting with brute force. They were fighting with survival instincts. The alien fleet, clearly taken off guard by the sudden shift in tactics, responded with equal ferocity. Energy blasts filled the air, but many of them missed, striking empty space where the humans had been moments before. Some ships took damage, but they kept pushing forward, using every ounce of power left in their systems to stay in the fight. Sarah's breath caught as she watched the chaos unfold. It was a dance of destruction, a deadly game of cat and mouse. The alien ships were relentless, but the humans were fighting like they had nothing to lose. Every hit, every near miss, felt like a victory in itself. But then, one of the alien ships broke off from the formation and veered toward Earth's flagship. It was a massive ship, its guns glowing with an intensity that sent chills down Sarah's spine. They were targeting her ship, the heart of the human resistance. "Brace for impact," she shouted, her voice barely audible over the commotion. The alien ship fired. A massive beam of energy shot toward them, the blast so powerful that it tore through space itself. The flagship rocked violently as the energy collided with its shields. The hull groaned under the strain, and alarms blared as the shields began to buckle. "Shields at 20%. An officer cried out, panic creeping into their voice. Sarah gritted her teeth. "Keep them up. Hold the line." The human ships around her flagship fought back with everything they had, distracting the alien ship just long enough to give Sarah's ship a chance to recover. The shields were down to almost nothing, but they had bought themselves a few seconds. "We can't keep this up for long," Lieutenant James said, his voice tense. "If we don't take that ship down now, we're done for." Sarah's mind raced as she searched for a solution, her eyes scanning the chaos of the battlefield. The answer came to her suddenly. An idea, a desperate gamble. "All ships, focus fire on the lead alien ship. Concentrate everything you've got on that one target." There was a brief hesitation, but the officers quickly relayed the command. The remaining human ships, though damaged, shifted their focus. They poured every last ounce of firepower into the alien flagship, their weapons lighting up the void of space in a barrage of deadly energy. For a brief moment, it seemed like nothing would happen. The alien shields absorbed the attacks, pushing back against the human onslaught. But then, something unexpected occurred. The shields flickered, weakened by the continuous barrage, and the alien ship began to falter. Sarah's heart leaped in her chest. "Keep firing. We've got them." The combined fire of Earth's fleet hit the alien ship with all the force they could muster. One by one, the shields cracked, and then the hull was exposed. The alien flagship's weapons sputtered out of control, unable to fire back. And then, with a massive explosion, The ship erupted in a fiery burst of light. It was a victory, hard-earned and bittersweet. But Sarah knew this was far from over. The alien fleet was still a formidable force, and there was no telling what their next move would be. They had just taken out the flagship, but there were still hundreds of ships left to deal with. The communication screen flickered to life again. This time, it wasn't the cold alien captain's voice that came through, but a new one, a voice filled with fury and disbelief. "You humans, you dare destroy our flagship. This isn't over, not by a long shot." Sarah's jaw tightened as the alien voice filled the room, each word laced with venom. The battle was far from over. It was only just beginning. The warning echoed across the command center, sending a chill through everyone present. The alien captain's voice was filled with rage, and the promise of retaliation hung heavy in the air. Sarah's mind raced. They had destroyed the flagship, but that was only one part of the puzzle. The rest of the alien fleet, though stunned by the loss, was still very much intact. They were coming for Earth, and they weren't going to stop until they had claimed it. "General, they're already shifting their formations," Lieutenant James reported, his eyes glued to the screens. "They're going to bring all remaining firepower to bear on us. We're not out of the woods yet." Sarah stood tall, trying to steady the nerves that threatened to rattle her composure. She knew they had only moments before the aliens retaliated with everything they had. The fight was far from over, and it would take every ounce of human strength and ingenuity to survive this. "Prepare for impact," Sarah ordered, her voice steady despite the overwhelming pressure. "We've taken down their flagship, but they'll come at us with everything now. Hold your positions. We can't let them regroup." Her officers scrambled to make adjustments, coordinating the remaining human ships into tighter formations. They couldn't afford to spread out too much, not with the full might of the alien fleet bearing down on them. Every ship, no matter how damaged, would need to fight like it was their last. As the alien fleet moved into position, Sarah's gaze shifted to the map of the battlefield. There was a vast expanse between Earth's ships and the alien forces, but it wouldn't be long before the enemy closed in. The tension in the command center was palpable, every officer holding their breath as the final moments before the next wave of battle drew nearer. Sarah tapped the console in front of her. "All ships, activate evasive maneuvers. We need to keep them off balance." The human fleet scattered, moving swiftly and erratically, each ship trying to make itself the difficult target. The alien ships were quicker to respond, their weapons already charging in preparation for the onslaught. The space around them was filled with energy blasts as the two sides clashed once again. In the midst of the chaos, Sarah's mind raced. The aliens were strong, but they didn't know Earth's tactics. They didn't understand how unpredictable humans could be in the face of adversity. It wasn't just the weapons they had, but their resolve, their refusal to bend in the face of certain destruction. "Lieutenant, what's the status on the remaining weapons?" Sarah asked, her voice tense as another barrage of energy blasts lit up the space in front of them. James glanced at the data feed. "We've got minimal firepower left. If we don't hit them hard, we won't last much longer." The thought of losing everything, of watching Earth fall into the hands of these merciless invaders, sparked a surge of anger within Sarah. "Then we make them regret coming here. All ships, focus fire on their weaker vessels. Hit them fast and hard. We've got one shot at this." The orders were relayed, and Earth's fleet immediately began to concentrate their fire on the alien ships that were less heavily armored, picking off smaller vessels that could be taken down with precision shots. The alien ships, though formidable, were beginning to show signs of strain. They were unprepared for this kind of unpredictable guerrilla warfare. Suddenly, the communication channel crackled to life again, and the same voice from before, infuriated and full of venom, came through. "This is far from over, humans. You may have taken down our flagship, but you have no idea what you've provoked. We will raze your planet to the ground and take it as our own." Sarah clenched her fists, anger boiling inside her. She didn't have time for threats. She didn't need to hear the promises of destruction. What mattered now was their survival, and giving the aliens a taste of what humanity was capable of. "General, another fleet has appeared on the edge of our sensors," one of her officers said, his voice filled with dread. "They're bringing in reinforcements." Sarah's heart sank. It was happening just as she feared. The alien forces had regrouped, and now they were bringing in more ships, more firepower. The humans were outnumbered, outgunned, and running low on supplies. But there was still one thing they had that the aliens didn't: the will to fight. "Bring up the tactical map," Sarah commanded, her voice steady but filled with determination. The image of the alien reinforcements began to populate the screen. More ships, more danger. It looked like an insurmountable force. "We're not running." "Not now," Sarah muttered under her breath. She turned to her officers. "I need a plan, and I need it now. If we're going to survive, we need to outthink them, outmaneuver them." One of the officers, a young tactical expert named Sergeant Miller, spoke up, her voice calm but urgent. "We could use their reinforcements against them. If we can bait them into a trap, we might have a chance." A flicker of hope sparked in Sarah's chest. It was risky, insanely risky, but it was their best chance. "What do you need?" Sergeant Miller began outlining the plan. It would require precision, timing, and a bit of luck, but if they pulled it off, they could turn the tide. It involved using their most vulnerable ships as decoys, drawing the alien reinforcements into a narrow section of space where the remaining human ships would ambush them. "We only get one shot at this," Sarah said, her voice a mixture of determination and resolve. "But if we do this right, we can wipe out a huge portion of their fleet and buy Earth some time." The decision was made. The human ships would lure the alien reinforcements into the trap. They would fight like never before, taking advantage of their knowledge of the enemy and their willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. The fleet moved into position, each ship taking its place, knowing the risks. The stage was set, and Sarah couldn't help but feel the weight of what was to come. This was their last chance. The aliens had underestimated humanity once, and now they were going to learn what it truly meant to challenge the human race. The countdown began. Sarah gripped the console, her eyes fixed on the chaotic battlefield. The time to strike was near. And then, as if the universe had been holding its breath, everything fell into place. "Now," Sarah shouted. The human ships dove forward, luring the aliens into the narrow space between a field of asteroids. The trap was set. The first phase had begun. But in the back of Sarah's mind, a nagging thought lingered. If this didn't work, it was over. She couldn't let that happen. Not after everything they had been through. Not after everything they had lost. As the battle raged on, Sarah's heart pounded. She had no idea if this would work. But if the aliens thought they had the upper hand, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. "You said." The trap was set. The human ships moved swiftly, darting between asteroids, luring the alien reinforcements into their carefully calculated position. The alien ships, confident and arrogant, pursued with reckless abandon, their weapons primed, oblivious to the danger they were heading straight into. Sarah stood at the command center, watching the movements unfold on the holographic display. The tension was thick in the air, and her crew was silent, their eyes fixed on the screen. Every movement of the fleet had to be perfect. One wrong step, one miscalculation, and it could all fall apart. "Prepare to engage," Sarah ordered, her voice tight with anticipation. She had placed everything on the line with this plan. If it didn't work, Earth was finished. She couldn't allow that. Not now. The alien ships entered the asteroid field, and that's when it happened. The first volley of human firepower came from behind the debris, a sudden explosion of energy that rocked the nearest alien vessel. The alien ship's shields flared briefly before the blasts punched through, leaving it crippled and tumbling into the void. "Direct hit," Lieutenant James shouted, his voice filled with excitement. The trap was in full effect. The alien reinforcements, now fully committed to their chase, found themselves trapped in a narrow passage between the asteroids. The human ships, which had been lying in wait, now opened fire in unison. The alien vessels, large and powerful as they were, struggled to maneuver in the confined space. Sarah's heart raced. The plan was working. The alien ships were caught off guard, struggling to respond to the well-coordinated human attack. But Sarah knew they couldn't rest just yet. The alien forces were relentless, and they would retaliate with everything they had. "Keep the pressure on them," Sarah commanded. "Don't let them regroup. Every second counts." The human ships unleashed barrage after barrage, the sound of explosions reverberating through the command center as the alien fleet took hit after hit. The alien ships tried to break free, but the narrow asteroid field left them with little room to maneuver. The human ships were like shadows, darting in and out, picking off one alien ship after another. But then, the unexpected happened. The alien captain's voice crackled through the comms again, this time laced with a cold, calculating tone. "You think you've won, humans." The alien captain's voice boomed, making every crew member tense. "You've only delayed the inevitable. We have no need for this field. We will burn it all down. Your pathetic efforts will only hasten your demise." Sarah clenched her fists. The alien captain wasn't backing down. But what the captain didn't understand was that the humans weren't about to give up. The sheer determination that had brought them this far would not let them falter now. The alien ships began to fire in a new pattern, a coordinated attempt to break free from the trap. It was a last-ditch effort to escape and regroup, but Sarah had already anticipated this. Her ships, still hidden in the asteroids, adjusted their positions, now targeting the weak points of the alien ship's defensive formations. The alien captain's words stung, but they also gave Sarah the clarity she needed. There was no more room for negotiation, no more room for mercy. The only option now was to crush them, once and for all. "Deploy all remaining fighters," Sarah ordered, her voice a low growl of determination. "Let's finish this." The remaining fighter ships shot out from their hiding places, weaving through the asteroid field with deadly precision. The alien reinforcements, now distracted by the chaos, were ill-prepared for this new wave of attacks. The fighters swarmed the alien ships, firing missiles and energy blasts, taking down one ship after another. The sound of their destruction filled the air, as the asteroids around them lit up with brilliant flashes of energy. The alien ships were beginning to break apart under the relentless assault. The once feared alien fleet was now fragmented, each ship struggling to maintain formation, their weapon systems faltering. The first alien flagship might have been the prize, but this was the true blow that would end the conflict. Sarah watched as the alien fleet began to crumble, the massive ships falling apart under the combined might of Earth's forces. She knew this wasn't over yet. The alien captain still had a fleet remaining, but the tide of battle had shifted. The humans had turned the impossible into something within reach. The thought of victory began to take root in her mind. But then, just as she was beginning to feel a glimmer of hope, the unthinkable happened. A massive shockwave rippled through the battlefield, coming from the far side of the asteroid field. Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief as she watched, horrified, as a massive new alien warship, far larger than anything they had seen before, emerged from the depths of the battlefield. "General, look," Lieutenant James shouted. "That ship, it's huge. What the hell is that?" The new ship was an enormous dark silhouette against the stars, its size dwarfing the remaining alien vessels. Its energy signatures were unlike anything they had encountered. It wasn't just another warship. It was a command ship, capable of controlling the entire fleet, and it was charging straight for the heart of Earth's remaining forces. Sarah's heart sank as she realized the scale of the threat before them. This wasn't just another fight. It was the final stand. The alien captain had one last card to play, and it was terrifying. "We're not done yet," Sarah muttered, her voice tight with a mixture of resolve and fear. "All ships, focus fire on that command ship. We take it down, or we don't survive." The human fleet braced for what would be the toughest battle yet. As the enormous alien warship loomed closer, Sarah steeled herself. The aliens thought they had humanity cornered, but they were wrong. They had no idea what they had awakened. This was Earth's fight, and they were going to show the galaxy just how far humanity would go to protect their home. The final act of the battle was about to begin, and Sarah was ready to lead her people through it, no matter the cost.